So, it's the final of some critical but not prominent shipbuilding trends of the 1880s to 1950s. It's a pet project, really, and we're now up to 1950. And I can honestly say there are going to be some people asking me, what is that ship? You should all probably recognize the Whiskey class submarine. But you're probably going, what is that? Well, that's a Whitby class Type 12 frigate, which was designed by the Royal Navy in late 1940s, early 1950s to serve as first rate ocean going convoy escorts. Basically, the Royal Navy was trying to build a specialist navy. You all know my views on building a specialist navy. You will never get enough ships. You will never get enough ships. But the Royal Navy in the 1950s felt secure enough in its budget and secure enough in its government funding to be able to push this and to build a vessel which is 2,185 tons in standard, 2,600 tons in full load, and about 110 meters in length. Well, yeah. And which is armed with a twin 4.5-inch gun. Always good. Like those. Mark 6. Like a twin 4.5. Good gun to have, a good setup to have. Twin 40mm Bofors Stag, Mark II Stag, which was later changed to a single 40mm Bofors Mark 7. Two Limbo anti-submarine mortars Mark 10. And 12 21-inch anti-submarine torpedoes tubes, which were removed or never even shipped because it was felt that they weren't really needed, or rather, that useful. So they're pretty much designed with limbos aft, guns for air defense and self defense against any vessels that they can encounter forward. Now, the Royal Navy was worried. The Soviet Union started producing a lot of these. They knew they were coming. And when I say a lot, there are 236 of them built. We can then talk about the later classes of submarines, but this is the point. In the previous episode, I talked about the reason battleships weren't being built and stopped being built. Well, it's the same scenario with why are you building and how are you justifying a specialist escort force? Because the Royal Navy is thinking it's going to have to be convoying escorts or convoying merchant ships across the Atlantic again because the Soviet Union is churning out a lot of submarines. And yes, this is usually the point at which someone sits there and goes, but what about nuclear submarines? The point about the lovely SSNs is that if we consider the November class, they are built 1957 to 1963. They're in planning. They're lovely. But in total numbers, November's built 14 are completed. Victor's 48. of which 3 are apparently still active, which we can all be slightly worried about. Alphas, 7. Aculas, 15. Sierras, 4. Go back to whiskies. Well, then comes the Romeos. 133 of those are built. Then the Foxtrots. 74. Then the Tangos. 18. Then the Kilos. 73. Now, we can all say that as you go further along, and of course now the unbroken lineage has led us to the ladder class, and eventually potentially Project Kalina, of which 12 are planned, 1's building, and 2 are completed, and only 1 of those is currently actively in service. You can say that these submarines have got progressively larger and have got progressively more interesting in terms of their capabilities. The current Larder class can do 21 knots submerged and 10 knots on the surface. But it all starts back with the whiskies. It all starts back with the whiskies. And this is the time when they're coming into service. So when we think about the Cold War and we are imagining the big fight between the SSNs and the frigates and the SSNs and each other, yeah, that's probably going to happen. But the bazinking blooming numbers that are going to really wreck your day are going to be the whiskies and the other SSKs, which are the other fast diesel vessels, because they're the ones which are going to be holding the defensive line, the bastions around the SSBNs, the ballistic missile submarines. They're the ones which are going to be protecting those. They're the ones which are going to be providing the numbers going out into the North Atlantic. Yes, they are in many ways more easy to kill, but they are also in many ways far more dangerous. A diesel boat on batteries, running silent, becomes a hole of nothingness in the ocean. A nuclear submarine can be made very, very quiet, but the reactor is always on. It's incredibly quiet, but the reactor is always on. And actually, the ways you counter nuclear submarines in anti-submarine warfare are actually different to an extent from the ways you counter SSKs, which is why you get those wonderful stories appearing of this submarine on loan to the US Navy from the Swedish or the Norwegians or Germans, insert small submarine SSK owning nation here, sunk a carrier group. Why? Because the USN called them over to train them and torture them, because they mainly have SSNs, which means they mainly have people who understand nuke boats in their anti-submarine warfare. And they know the Chinese, the Russians, everyone else doesn't. Because nuclear boats are incredibly expensive. And it becomes a law of diminishing returns because they are very expensive, and the more advanced they get, they are the high-end capability. But in the 1950s, this is all pre the nuclear submarine entering in, and they're already having the fear. This is the thing. These are the submarines. These are the successors of the Germans. And this is what the Royal Navy's building. And one of the interesting things is the Royal Navy, at the same time as it's building the Type 12s, also has the Type 15 program, which rebuilds wartime destroyers into fast anti-submarine frigates. And they also have to have the Type 14 program, which is supposed to produce utility or second-rate sort of escorts. And eventually, this, of course, leads to other classes of frigate. In fact, that hull, that design, sets up the Royal Navy for several generations of ships and several generations of ideas and evolutions. So it's a critical point. And the reason I picked the Type 12 rather than the Type 14 to talk about is because the Type 14, which has the best pictures around, is the HMS Malcolm. And frankly, I felt that HMS 10B just sounded a bit cooler. Plus, she's a camel-laird build ship. Specifically from 1951. She's laid down in 1953 and launched in 1955, which means the odds are my dad worked on her. It's probably a very junior draftsman at that point, or maybe while he was doing his apprentice. So, this is what the world had come to in the 1950s. Shipbuilding had changed. And it's very easy to focus in on the high-end things. Aegis, which comes through, the missile age, the nuclear power, all those things. Yeah, they're all coming in. They're all very sexy. But the reality is, this is the major threat. The SSNs are the long-range, powerful threat, but also the SSNs are also the ones which are spread all over the world, supposed to be causing trouble all over the world. They are the Deutschland class to the SSKs were the SS Cormoran. That's what they were. They were these ships which were far more useful, in terms of their impact. They were the numbers. They take a lot of the targets, but they are also the multipliers for the high-end units. So that's the point. The SSKs, they don't get the frame. They're Type 12 frigate. No, it doesn't get the fame, but it deserves it, because for its period, it's very, very good. And the whiskey class, well, they're scary. For their period, they are scary. They are 1,000 tons. Near enough. Surfaced, 1,300 tons submerged. They have 4 21-inch torpedo tubes in the bow and 2 in the stern. They can carry 12 torpedo tubes or 22 mines. And that's the other thing. The Soviets were far more practical about mines, and mines are far scarier. You think about a whiskey, it just has to sneak out quietly, lay its minefield. 22 mines laid, and then sneak home. Never has to come near a convoy. Never has to engage or run the risk of escorts. It's just put the mines out. And suddenly there's a patch of the ocean, whichever convoy goes through, it's going to be nasty. Or if you know an operation is going to be done, if you know one's coming up. Well, if you have to have your submarines waiting outside of places as the threat, well, they could be found, which could tell people the operation is coming. But if you put some mines on the quickest route from that place where the enemy, from the place where the enemy fleet normally is based to where you're going to be conducting operation, the odds are you're going to have caused them some issues. They were useful vessels. They really were. So, for the final time in this series, I'm going to don my hat. Hello! So, if you have watched none of the other episodes of this series, you will have no frame of reference for what I'm about to say. But if you have watched all the other 10, this is going to be the 11th time you heard it. So, my family, we communicate our love, our support for each other by setting family bragging right bets and challenges. My aunt has challenged me to a doozy. If I get to 13,000 subscribers by December the 31st, she and my uncle are going to wear All Hail the Blackburn face masks and have a picture taken, and it will go up in the brew ships on the 2nd of January. That's if I get to 13,000 subscribers by December the 31st. If not, I think she's planning on burning them. She's bought them, so it's on her, not me. Oh. But so, thank you. Anyone, if you do like the videos, please like and share. Please subscribe. Any help gratefully received, because frankly, the only chance I have of getting there is with your help. Thank you. And yeah, you should be getting fairly used to the Axis if you're not watched them. The other series I've got going on, which started 3 days ago now, is the Chiefs of Staff of the Axis Navies. Well, it seemed like a fun thing to do, and frankly, there wasn't enough about them out there. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you do like. I hope you press the little bell down there, and I hope you managed to join me for the lives, and I managed to get at least one of them running. Thank you. Take care. Maybe I got all of them running. Who knows? If you watched them, you'll know. Thank you.